It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, hands up. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, and you. Very busy, very exciting day for Utah State. We'll get your text and reactions to the news today as it looks like it is official now. Utah State has not said anything official themselves, though they did share...
Their men's basketball Twitter account was
they did share a video that pretty much tells you all you need to know. But yes, it does look like Coach Calhoun is sticking around. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot today, among other things. Players in the portal, players in the Mountain West that are hitting the portal. And then what does that mean for the future of the conference, especially Utah State, and where they could fit in on this? So 435-339-0321. That's the Young Power Sports of Logan text line if you want to weigh in on the news today. And a little bit later on in the show, we'll touch on some NBA stuff as the Utah Jazz are in action tonight, and a couple different reports about some future things affecting the NBA. Jazz have only about 10 games left in their race to the bottom. What can be fixed? Can anything be addressed with teams tanking and tanking hard? So we'll take a look at some of that stuff as well. But the biggest story of the day around here is that Coach Calhoun is coming back. And look, for me, there were over the weekend, there were weird stuff going back and forth. People were photoshopping things. They were trying to will things into existence. Accounts with very little credibility were trying to claim that they knew what was going to happen. But for me, the biggest indicator about Coach Calhoun's decision came just at the last bit of our program yesterday afternoon. And that's when Isaac Johnson put his name in the transfer portal. And for me, that was the biggest signal that Coach Calhoun was coming back. And then throughout the course of today, more of those reports, more of those confirmations materialized. And then this afternoon, Utah State basketball social media account shares a slow motion video of Coach Calhoun raising his arms to the crowd like, let's go. And without saying it, they said it.
Yeah. So I think it still maybe falls within the realm of unofficially official, but it's happening. Calhoun is staying. All the credible outlets are saying it. ESPN, CBS, Field of 68. Scott Gerard noting it's like any source you want to trust or that you really should trust has said it at this point. So Jerrod Calhoun sticking with the Aggies, and it's absolutely massive. We went over this late last week. Spent about half the podcast, at least a couple of my rants were isolated on what it would mean if Jerrod Calhoun stays. Just how big of a deal it could be for the Aggies, because sure, they've managed to move on without head coaches, and that's something that needs to be taken into account. But there just is something different. Like if Danny Sprinkle had stayed last year, it would have been huge for Utah State, because you might have been able to hang on to Great Osibor, and you definitely could have had more continuity and maintained what you had last year. But they managed to move on. It's not like they missed Danny Sprinkle and Great Osibor, because they were contenders in the Mountain West this year. But just as it would have been huge last year, it was huge here. It's like, are you going to roll the dice again? Are you going to roll the dice and, risk coming up snake eyes, where maybe you finally miss on the next coaching prospect? Because it's not just Coach Calhoun as a coach. It's not just the roster continuity. The biggest thing I think for me has to do with his recruiting class that he's bringing in. This is some of the most talented group of guys, and especially for this system. Like, you look at the matchup zone, and you think, all right, what were some of the Aggies' problems? Like, maybe they weren't long enough, they didn't have a rim protector, and it's like, okay, well, Coach Calhoun's talking about how he's just about already got a big lined up in the transfer portal, to the point where I wonder if he's actually tampering with somebody. It's almost like, whoa, he's being that blatant. I don't know if he was or not. I'm not going to speculate, but it almost
had somebody very specific in mind.
Yeah, it felt
which
like
is okay. It can be an archetype of a player.
Yeah, it just felt like he was towing the line there.
Yes,
but you have that, so you need a rim protector. And that's something I talked about on Friday, where it's like a big problem with the matchup zone is not having a rim protector and not having a scoring post presence. And then you look elsewhere with the type of players the Aggies had. And I don't mean this to demean who Utah State had on its roster. They had talented players, and their talent got the Aggies to where they got, to the NCAA tournament, to contending in the Mountain West, and getting to the conference tournament semifinals. They were a talented team, but to maximize Calhoun's system, they need a certain archetype of player. And being the wrong archetype for a system isn't a knock on players like, Ian Martinez. Is he a great small forward for Calhoun's system? It'd be better if he was a shooting guard. Add more length to that matchup zone. Add more length. Add a post guy. Is Abin Gadarazzi a bad player? No. But he didn't have some of the talents that the Aggies needed. His talents lay in other parts of the game. Same with Isaac Johnson. That's why Isaac Johnson's in the transfer portal. Is he a bad player? No. Just isn't the right fit. You look at guys like Dayton Albury and Drake Allen and Mason Falsov. They're all looking to stay because they fit the system really well in their positions. And so that's something that you can take and move forward. And then you look at the guys coming in. And again, this is why it's big for Calhoun to stay. The players he's bringing in as freshmen can be impact freshmen because of how they can fit the system. The length, like everyone except for the point guard. So 4 out of the 5 guys are 6'5" or taller. 3 of them are like 6'9" or taller, I think, or 6'7" or taller. Like a bunch of tall, long players who are probably going to need to add some bulk, but like they can be contributing players, especially off the bench, in this system. And then if Calhoun is able to add a player or two in the transfer portal, if he adds, an impact big, like, two-way big who can score in the post and can protect the rim. And I can name a few of those guys in the transfer portal right now. We can go into this.
There are a few of them out there. Question is, how much can Utah State afford?
Yeah, that's going to be a question, but they're going to try. They're going to swing for the fences here. But if you add more length on the perimeter, it's going to be incredible. And the Aggies would deserve to be and likely be the preseason favorite in the Mountain West. Not just because the rest of the Mountain West there's a lot of question marks, because they'll rebound, but like Mountain West is going to be good next year, and the Aggies can be even better.
Yeah, I will circle back on that topic, but I want to get to a number of the texts because we've got a bunch of them flying in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. This actually came in at the end of the show yesterday when the news was broken about Isaac Johnson putting his name in the transfer portal. 6391 says, we'll miss Big Fish at our house. We met him at an Aggie Madness at the start of the season, and he chatted with us for a minute. Even when I was watching March Madness last weekend, he was asking where Big Fish was. Yeah, it must have been a kid was asking about that. But yeah, look, Isaac Johnson, he became a folk hero with his signature clap after making big shots. And certainly he was the unsung hero of Utah State's upset, getting that win in the first round last year, beating TCU to advance to the second round. But it became pretty clear early on that he wasn't quite fitting into Jerrod Calhoun's system, and it got progressively out of the box. It just didn't really work because earlier in the season, Coach Calhoun was trying to play him 10, 15 minutes, and he was starting him for a good chunk of the season. Then he moved to the bench, and he played some meaningful minutes off the bench. And then it became he might play 1 to 3 minutes off the bench. We just didn't see much of him. He just wasn't really working into the rotations. He wasn't, matching the style that Coach Calhoun wanted. It came no surprise to me that Isaac Johnson put his name in the portal. And when if Coach Calhoun is sticking around, it makes sense that Isaac Johnson would seek another opportunity to go play.
Yeah, and I think there will be a team that is going to be able to fully utilize his skills in a way that the Aggies just weren't able to. So looking forward to see how he's able to again, to maximize his potential. He's only got a year or two of eligibility left. That was kind of like when Trevin Dorius left. Like the Aggies just kind of, it's better for both sides apart. Trevin Dorius ended up having a very successful final season down at UVU. And I would expect Isaac Johnson to find his way to one of the in-state schools. And I think he's going to be great.
A couple other texts coming through, 2444. Let's go. Coach Calhoun sticking around. Love to see it. I think the Aggies are also likely to be the roster with the most continuity and returning production in the conference heading into next season as well. I like the way things are shaping up early on.
Yeah, I'm doing the math, and I have to have a couple more numbers to plug in before I get this for certain. But I've got some early returns on returning production percentage for all the teams in the Mountain West based on who's in the portal so far. And Utah State looking pretty good among all the teams, but that's waiting to see if they have anybody else into the portal. Because don't assume just because Calhoun's back that everyone's going to stay.
Right. It's just the portal's been open barely 24 hours.
Yeah. The Aggies didn't have too many enter the portal early last year, and it kind of ramped up toward the end of the first week. Some of them ended up coming back, but we could see some guys, even some unexpected entries into the portal if guys get enticed away or however it ends up happening.
Yeah,
it's possible.
29 days left for that to still happen. But when you look at, we were just looking at this earlier. If you look at the first, second, and third team All Mountain West teams, there's only 2 guys from those 15 players.
Yeah, it's
who will be back. Well, right at this moment, will be back, either because of transfer or graduation.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And not included in those first 3 teams is the guy who was the defensive player of the year and freshman of the year.
Right.
He's not going to be back. So, yeah, that's a bunch of players aren't going to be back who are the stars. Now, mind you, we had a similar level of this last year. I don't know if it was quite to the extreme, but I think everyone from first team last year, well, maybe Degenhart. Was he first team last year?
I think he was.
Yeah, if he was, he would have returned. He did return, obviously, if I'm remembering right, that he was first team. But yeah, last year, the stars left: Isaiah Stevens, Great Osborne, Darius Brown, Jaden Ledee. Go down the list, like all of the great players. Tyson Degenhart was basically that Will Smith memes, like looking around, where are the rest of the stars in the Mountain West? Guys filled their shoes. Ian Martinez, Nate Clifford, Donovan Dent. And we're going to see that again this next year. I could name who I think are going to be the up-and-coming stars. Because there's going to be some guys who step up and play big. And then there's going to be some transfers too, because transfers are most of the great players in the Mountain West. But yeah, the Mountain West should be fine. The only question is, who's it going to be? Who's really going to take that step up? And so it's an exciting thing to look forward to.
5338 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. If Calhoun is staying at Utah State, that's certainly good news. Continuity is definitely important. I just hope he can bring some Mountain West Conference caliber players into Utah State from the portal. Also, congrats to Ryan Odom for getting the job with the Virginia Cadavers.
Do you mean Cavaliers or did you say cadavers?
It says cadavers.
That's what it says.
I'm sure that's what 5338
That's what their play style has been like.
Yeah.
That slow plodding. Or did they stop that because I forgot the name of the head coach. He retired.
Yeah. I forget his name. But, yeah, congrats to Ryan Odom. That's definitely a big step up for him. And I think really that was the ultimate goal. Maybe not necessarily knowing that he'd end up in Virginia, but moving back to that area of the country would make it easier for him to slide into positions like that. Though we've seen coaches from around here get coaching gigs at pretty high-profile places as well. Speaking of, 5452, right on cue. Patino to Villanova. Then likely to follow him there.
Did that just break?
I don't know that it's official, but there seem to be reports that that's who they have zeroed in on.
And there's another Mountain West player in the portal. Got to add that to the list. Trying to see if it, because that is a hot rumor, but now I gotta figure out if anybody was reporting it. Also, Utah Valley is extending their coach. In case you were curious. I know he was on my short list of guys I was looking at for like, Utah State's going after another coach.
You know, Utah Valley is a program that's kind of been under the radar, not talked about enough in this state. Utah State's had a lot of coaching turnover, and they've been able to get to the NCAA tournament a lot. While Utah Valley hasn't had NCAA success as a team, they've been a successful program, and there has been coaching turnover there. But that's at kind of a different level. They've had some pretty steady success, even though there's been disruption with their coaching position.
Yeah, they had a pair of 21 seasons with Mark Pope. He goes to BYU. Then after a quick rebuild, because they've not had the same extreme turnover of Utah State. Just take what Utah State did, or what Utah State's had over the last 3 years, spread that out over about 7 years, and that's what UVU's dealt with, where they have a good head coach, build something good, they get him on the eve of the NCAA tournament, and then they leave. Mark Pope to BYU, Mark Madsen to Cal, Todd Phillips now just got him to a 25-win season, and thank heavens for the Wolverines. They're going to nail down this head coach and ideally, build something and finally get to the NCAA tournament, because they've never been. I hadn't realized they'd never actually been until I was looking into it the other day. I was like, never? For how good they've been as a program, it's in the WAC and there's some context, but like a good program. And it's like, dang, they've never been. That's a surprise. I don't know how. I kind of know how, because they keep losing in the WAC title game or the WAC semifinals.
Well, that's part of their problem. They're in a one-bid league.
Yeah, they keep losing to Grand Canyon.
So you
that's
can have a good
problems.
year, but if you don't win the tournament.
Yeah, I think they got upset. I think they got upset by SUU one year, and then they lost to Grand Canyon this year, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But enough about UVU.
Yeah, but Richard Pitino, there's several different reports suggest that he's headed to Villanova, but nothing really official.
Yeah, there's something official. Link us to it, and I'll look into it, because I'm trying. It's hard for me to keep track of social media during the show, and I'm also watching my email inbox for details of Coach Calhoun's contract.
According to Jeff Grammer, who reports does a great job covering New Mexico sports, says that as of about 5 minutes ago, I've communicated today with Richard Pitino. Last I spoke with him this afternoon, he hadn't been offered any job. But just because you haven't been offered a job doesn't mean you're not talking to somebody about a job.
Yeah.
A couple other texts coming through. 9315 texting in. A couple of texts here. When you getting the voice of the Lady Aggie on the show again? He's the best deflator ever. Does an amazing job calling game. Okay. Now
when are we getting Ajay on the show?
Now we have the opportunity at USU to do something only been done by Stu, maybe. Also, can we pull off something like BYU, but with lots less monies?
Well, you're not going to pull off you don't be comparing yourself to BYU, because that's millions of dollars in NIL and buying the top recruits in the country.
And in a major conference.
Yeah, Utah State's not going to be doing that. You can't be comparing them. Everyone who's listening knows who I'm about to compare the Aggies to. It's Gonzaga and San Diego State. Those are the mid-major standards, or non-power conference standards. Because there's arguments about whether Gonzaga is still mid-major. Those are the standards. It's balling on a budget. Increasing that, because the biggest thing with Utah State is getting to the top of their current list of peers, namely the Mountain West. Being in the middle of the Mountain West and things like NIL and paying your coaches, that's something where the Aggies weren't going to thrive. And it's where, every single time they were hiring a coach, they were hiring him for $900,000 a year. And then that coach would do good. Then they get offered 3 times that much to go somewhere else, and the coach would leap at that. Now you're paying Coach Calhoun $1.8 million. It's going to go to over $2 million by the time his contract is over, and you're going to have an NIL that's at or near the top of the Mountain West. That's what's going to get to the Aggies to rise above where they've been. Get into the tournament, pray that you win a game. That's where you can maybe actually make a run to the Sweet 16. So don't compare yourself to BYU as much as Utah State could beat BYU in any given year, provided that the Aggies are good. Like, don't compare the Aggies setup to BYU's because it doesn't involve having multiple billionaires payrolling the team. Utah State has one billionaire bankrolling the team. So it's not
Is he a billionaire? I don't know if he's a billionaire.
Is he not quite there? I don't know. Multi-millionaire.
He's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. He's worth more money than I'll ever even see. So it's like don't compare too much to BYU because it's just a different game that both teams are playing by in terms of off the court.
They've been in different worlds for quite a long time. And I know a lot of folks want to try to compare, but it's
basically ever since BYU left the West Coast Conference, it's like for a minute there with BYU in the West Coast and Utah State in the Mountain West. Granted, Utah State wasn't as good during BYU's era in the West Coast. That was about as close as they've come to being peers.
Yeah.
Like as far, and again, it's not just that BYU is just on some whole other level Utah State can never achieve as far as on-court success. But again, like power conference teams have bigger budgets and there's a lot more things they can do that make the game easier for them.
Yeah. They're at a bigger conference. They've got a bigger budget. They've got bigger facilities. They have some things that Utah State just doesn't.
Yeah. Utah State's playing Moneyball and BYU is, getting bankrolled like, the Yankees and Dodgers where they just buy all the great players and Utah State has to raise them up. Again, balling on a budget.
It doesn't mean that you still can't beat teams like that because Utah State has shown that they can. And just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you know what you're doing with that money.
Yeah.
We got to take a time out here on the Full Court Press. Still a lot of texts coming through. And we'll get to those, reacting to the news today that Jerrod Calhoun is sticking around and getting a big fat pay raise to do it. We'll continue to react to that next here on the Full Court Press.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
A mouth-watering Cafe Sabor burrito, smothered in cheese and fresh guacamole with endless chips and salsa, plus your favorite drink, all for just $7.95. It's Locals Day at Cafe Sabor. Every Thursday, the drinks are bottomless, the chips and salsa are endless, and the burritos are amazing, all for just $7.95. There's nothing better. It's Cafe Sabor's way of saying thanks, Cache Valley. Don't miss Locals Day every Thursday at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station, 6th West and Center in Logan.
No matter what the conditions, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle up and off your property. Now is the time to plan to make extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage and moving that old vehicle. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
For more than a century, couples have shopped at S.C. Needham Jewelers for their diamond engagement ring. We have the largest selection of exclusive engagement rings in the area. Also, with the use of state-of-the-art technology, we're able to custom make with precision the ring of your dreams. You'll be able to work with our award-winning jewelry designer, Joseph Needham. You will also enjoy a vast selection of loose diamonds, allowing you to choose an affordable price range. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
What is dedication?
My daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Best of Northern Utah contest continues, and voting, you only have till tomorrow to get your votes in. So vote today, vote tomorrow to recognize the businesses that are truly the best at what they do. And that's how they can win gold or silver recognition in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com. You can vote once a day and vote in as many different categories as you want for each time that you're in there. But go to the different categories. There are subcategories there. We've had hundreds of businesses nominated and recognized, and now it's up to you to vote for them to see who ultimately is chosen to be the Best of Northern Utah for 2025. So go to bestofnorthernutah.com and let your voice be heard. Getting back to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, it's been very busy today with the news that Jerrod Calhoun is sticking around at Utah State, despite speculation that he may go to West Virginia. The Mountaineers have still not named their next head coach. They still have a vacancy they're trying to fill. 9315 texting in. Do you think there's enough great big men in college basketball that not all the schools with crazy money can pick them all away? I personally feel that there is enough talent that blue bloods can't find or buy them all.
So as far as proven bigs who are going to fit or at least check a lot of the boxes for the Aggies, good post game, can be efficient in the post, ideally be a rim runner too, but like if you're a good post player, you're probably a good rim runner too. Rim protection on defense, and then solid rebounding. The number of bigs who check all of those boxes is not that long, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've been spending, an hour here or there looking through the players currently in the transfer portal, looking at quick highlight reels or some, if you want to go find a ton of highlight reels, college basketball scouting on YouTube puts out videos scarily quick. I have at times found out players were in the portal because the guy put out a video like 5 minutes after the guy entered the portal. He's really good, or they're really good at what they do. Because I've looked at that, just trying to get a taste of a bunch of different players. Not that I've gone and done a deep dive on anyone yet, because I can't, not at that volume. It may be tricky for the Aggies, if I'm being perfectly honest. They're not going to find a guy like people are seeing guys enter the portal. It's like this guy is like the leading rebounder in college basketball, and this guy's like averaging 15 and 11. They're saying this is the guy the Aggies are going to get, and I'm like, I don't know about that, guys, because that player is going to get paid a few $1 million to go to Kentucky or Purdue or whatever. Like, I think the Aggies can find somebody, but honestly, I feel like I've found more confidence the Aggies can pick up some guys who are under the radar guys. For instance, there's a guy out of Central Arkansas, Nehemiah Turner, who could be an underrated prospect where, he's only a freshman last year, but could take a big jump forward, especially given what he did late down the season. So the Aggies may not be able to hit a home run on getting a great big man. Like, as much as I've projected that confidence that all the NIL money is going to allow them, it can still be really hard because, to kind of answer 9315's question, I don't think there are enough great big men that they're going to run out of power conference schools before the Aggies can pick them up. They're going to either have to really sell somebody on what they got at Utah State or find a diamond in the rough.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple more texts here because they've been coming in. 6521, Reinhardt reporting Pitino to Nova. It looks like Villanova is getting Pitino and probably Donovan Dent. Yeah, I saw that earlier today. Rob Reinhardt, about an hour ago, saying Villanova will hire New Mexico's Richard Pitino as its next head coach per source. I'm told that former Lobos point guard and top transfer portal target Donovan Dent is likely to follow Pitino, but that is yet to be confirmed. So, yeah, there's a possibility there that Pitino could be on the move, and some of his top players could go with him. Because Dent is in the portal, though he has said, according to reports, that he is open to sticking around. But also True Washington has put his name in the portal from New Mexico. 5452 texting in. Another text similar. Patino to Villanova. Dent likely to follow him. And then also text earlier in the day, just checking in to see if Jason had a chance to watch Hoosiers.
No, I did not last night.
Okay, we'll ask you every day until you can return and give us a report on what you saw.
I gotta confirm that I actually have access to it.
Yeah. Thank you for the reminder, 5452. We will keep asking to find out because it's definitely worth seeing. 2305 with a couple of texts. Don't you think we need more than 5 or 6 freshmen coming in, no matter how talented, to improve this program? How about people from the portal? Also follow up, who are these freshmen and where are they coming from?
They definitely need more than the freshmen. Like, if it's just the freshmen, the Aggies will not be better than they were this year, because those freshmen, as talented as they are not going to be ready to have the Aggies at a NCAA tournament or Mountain West contending level. Like, look at San Diego State this year. A lot of talented young players. They were not consistent enough, not good enough on offense, not efficient enough, even with elite defense. Barely got them into the NCAA tournament and had them in fourth or fifth in the Mountain West. That would be kind of the ideal scenario for
And they
Utah
got blown
State.
out by the team that everybody thought shouldn't be there.
Yeah. So they do need players from the portal, namely a center, if they can find someone that's a really great proven guy, or somebody who can come in and average like 12 points, 7 rebounds, and a block and a half. Get that player, and the Aggies that's going to take the Aggies a long way. Ideally, also some length on the wing. They're going to be fine with guards. You got guys like Dayton Albury, Drake Allen, Mason Falslev, Jordy Barnes. You're bringing in Elijah Perryman, a freshman guard who may not be able to contribute year one just because there's so much ahead of him, but I said that about Jordy Barnes, and he played.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
As far as who these freshmen are, well, I have a great little bit of reading that I can assign to you.
That's right.
It's on
great resource.
Yeah, it's on Cache Valley Daily. You might have to dig for it because it's a month or two old. Basically, like in-depth look at Utah State's recruiting class for 2025, something to that effect. And I go about 6,500 words where I go through exactly who these freshmen are, where they come from, what type of player they are, what could their impact be for their first season. So and we also we did a podcast on it too a while back, so you can hear me say it on air as well.
Yeah. Those resources are there. I encourage you to just go search CacheValleyDaily.com, go to the sports section under Utah or under USU. And maybe do some scrolling, but you'll find it. A lot of great resource there, a lot of great information about this incoming freshman class. 8968 texting in. The fact that Donovan Dent leaving New Mexico is quite surprising. It was on the prelude to your show that Donovan Dent was in the transfer portal, and then BYU is in a different world from the Aggies. They are now a pro franchise, and the Aggies aren't.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
I mean, the money that's been thrown around down there, it certainly feels like it's a pro program.
It's a good comparison with high majors. They're essentially pro teams, and Utah State is
semi-pro.
Again, yeah, semi-pro, or it's like the Moneyball A's, just balling on a budget.
8908. Does the contract extension include additional years, or is it just a pay increase?
What I understand, it's just a pay increase. That's
for him and for his assistants.
Yeah. Again, we're kind of waiting on details when they get all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and they'll fulfill some grammar requests that have been put out by a couple of different members of the media, including me. So that information will be forthcoming either later tonight or tomorrow morning.
There you go. So we just got to wait on it.
Yeah.
Requests have been made.
Yeah. And Utah State's good about getting them about as quick as they can. They're not delaying this, being mean delaying this. It's, it does actually take some time. I've put in these requests in the morning and gotten them in the afternoon. They're good about it. It's just the contract may not have actually been signed by the time I sent it in. So I don't know, which maybe I I don't know. The way I drew it up, I tried to make sure that I get the contract, but that information will be forthcoming eventually.
435-339-0321 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. I want to circle back here on one of these texts, and I may not be able to find the specific one, but essentially this thought that the path for Utah State to be the top team coming into this next season right now on paper looks like it's there, and for Mason Falslev to be the preseason player of the year looks like it's there. And you consider any other player who might be in the running is either graduated or transferred. Certainly anybody graduated wouldn't be in the running, but any other player who could be in the running for that has put their name in the portal. So Mason Falslev could be the guy that steps into that spot to be the upcoming Mountain West Conference Player of the Year on the top team in the Mountain West.
Yeah, there's basically two players that I would say have a chance to be preseason Player of the Year next year that are still with their teams, and that's Mason Falslev and Miles Bird. That's basically it. Those are the two guys that remain from all conference teams this year, and those are going to be two of the projected top teams, at least, Utah State may be at the top. Well, we got to let the transfer portal settle a little bit on comings and goings, but but those two look like they're gonna be at the top, and with Mason probably is the favorite there because he's had the most production and was on the all defensive team with Bird. So Mason is going to be looked to as one of the next stars of the league. And then Utah State, you look at some of the returning production they have. If they don't lose too much more to the portal, they're going to return the majority of their production, which is something that hasn't happened to them in a while. They'll return one of the top players. They'll return one of the top coaches because Patino, Medved, probably both gone. Well, one of them is gone. One of them is probably gone. So you'd have one of the best coaches, one of the most talented rosters, some of the most continuity. Like Utah State would, it'd be similar to Boise State and New Mexico last year. Your path is the easiest to getting back to the top. You don't have to do what you've done for 3 years straight and claw back from losing your entire team. Like Utah State will finally be on relatively easy street with getting to the top. All it takes is instead of having to hit on like 5 transfers, hit on 2. And you're Mountain West champions.
Yeah, right. Because then you bring back that continuity, the connected understanding. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with a new coach, new concept, new players. You're just building on what's already known and understood from a team that went to the NCAA tournament this last year. So, because Mason he'll be a junior. Karsten Templin, he'll be a junior. Jordy Barnes, he'll be a sophomore. Isaac Davis, he'll be a sophomore. Dayton Albury. You got a lot of guys coming back. Tucker Anderson. A lot of these guys have a lot of extra years available to them that not just for next year, but even years beyond, where this team, if they can stick together, could really do some special things in Utah State Aggie uniforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with Mason and Carson, and you look at what they could do by their senior season, they could be really special players. Mason, we talk about him as having all-time great Aggie potential. And for now, it's still potential. Like, if Mason Falslev ended his career right now, it's like, yeah, it's pretty nice. He had a really nice 2-year run. Congratulations. Everyone likes you. You're going to be well remembered. He's not even really that close to all-time great Aggie status yet. Why? Because he hasn't hit his true prime yet.
Right.
You look at all of the other Aggies throughout history, most of them have, for those who stayed 4 years or so, they had respectable, even very respectable freshman and sophomore seasons. Go down the list, you'll find some, the freshman record book is dotted with names like J.C. Carroll and Greg Grant, and, go down the list of your favorite Aggies. But all of them were turning a corner by their junior year. And that's where Mason Falslev is going. Sam Merrill especially, he took a big turn in his junior year. You want, freshman and sophomore, he was good. He was like, do they have an all-freshman team? I can't remember if they had an all-freshman team back when Kobe and Sam They might have been All Mountain West third team, but they made like All Mountain West teams somewhere early in their career, but they were lesser known, decent players. Sam Merrill was player of the year as a junior. That's where he took his big step forward. That's where he was making things count. That's where he was forging his legend. He went from pretty decent player in Utah State history to all-time great.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of turn we now got to see from Mason Falslev. He's gone from promising player, like him, one player of the week a few times here. There's another big step to be taken. And that's a lot of pressure. And it's not assumed that it's going to happen. We've seen guys fail to take that big step forward. Not necessarily at Utah State. I'd have to think about guys who didn't take that at Utah State, but Mason still has a lot to get better at and that he can get better at. And so, again, that's gonna be the talk of the offseason. Like, how much of a bigger step does Mason Falslev take? Does he truly take on the mantle of Conference Player of the Year caliber player? Because that's the threshold he's not crossed yet.
But he certainly has that path in front of him, that opportunity there.
He definitely does.
Yeah. All right, we got to take another time out. Still opportunity for you to chime in, weigh in. Big news today. Coach Calhoun is sticking around. He's going to stay here at Utah State, and he's getting a big fat pay raise, nearly doubling his salary to do it. More on that. Also, who's in and who's out. Looking at other players in the portal throughout the Mountain West Conference. Give you some updates on that as more players have entered the portal just even this afternoon. Give you updates, the latest names and numbers on that next on the Full Court Press.
Winter is almost over, and the Sportsman on Main Street has tons of season-ending deals. All skis and ski boots are 40% off. If you need outerwear, it is up to 50% off. All fall and winter casual clothing is up to 70% off. At the Sportsman, we have truly unique clothing and outerwear, so you won't see yourself coming and going. It's our season-ending sale going on right now, only at the Sportsman on Main in downtown Logan.
Welcome, friend. Nice to see you again at the Sportsman.
Need a reliable partner for your medical needs? Look no further than Triton Medical and Transportation. We offer top quality medical soft goods right here in your community. From incontinence supplies and oxygen needs to medical transportation. Whatever you need to stay comfortable and healthy, we've got you covered. Trust Triton Medical and Transportation, caring for our community with every step, every mile. Call us today at 435-557-6687 or visit us online at mytritonsupply.com. Triton Medical and Transportation, because your health matters.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. As of this moment, only one Utah State men's basketball player in the portal, and that's Isaac Johnson. In stark contrast to Fresno State, who has pretty much every player in the portal for their team.
Yeah, there's only like one or two players that I can see on the roster that haven't entered the transfer portal. It's pretty insane. Basically, their entire team is leaving. And yeah, it's pretty rough.
Not a big surprise. They had a rough year. There was controversy in the locker room. Players getting suspended or kicked off the team because of gambling. But through it all, they haven't fired their coach, which is surprising. Maybe they're just waiting until they finally make that transition to the Pac-12 to do something serious about basketball there.
Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe they're putting all their eggs in football, where it's like they're already starting to slip a bit in football, where that was kind of their bread and butter, and now that's slipping. Maybe they only have time to focus on one. Meanwhile, Utah State is up in the ante. First ever $2 million coach in football. Dang near $2 million for a coach in basketball. They've never come close to those numbers before.
No.
And so they're showing a pretty significant investment in both, while others seem to be going the opposite direction.
Yeah, Utah State right now has the second highest paid coach in football and the second highest paid coach in basketball. Never would have thought I would have saw that day. But it is what it is. And other players in the portal, you'd mentioned there was we were talking earlier, there's another Mountain West player in the portal. Is that another one of those Fresno State players?
While we were the one during the show?
Yeah, a little bit earlier on in the program.
Oh, that was Latrell Davis for San Jose. So I had to add him to the list. So that's the most recent one that I've added. So yeah, I've got a whole Google sheet that I'm eventually going to put out publicly. I needed to get it into kind of a base state of readiness before putting it out because it's got kind of giant gaping holes in it so far. But right now I've got, as far as I'm able to tell, every player that's in the portal for every team in the Mountain West. And every team except for Colorado State at this point has someone in the portal. I've not yet seen a report of someone from Colorado State in the portal. And that surprises me a little bit, given they had a coach leave so quickly to Minnesota. But all the players that still have eligibility remaining have so far stayed with Colorado State. But we've got a ways to go.
Yeah. There you go. 435-339-0321. For those who want to chime in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 5452 texting in, heard Housley and Stasic from USU were in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything official or anything from social media accounts that monitor the transfer portal and have access to who's in the portal. There certainly are rumors of those two were pretty likely to transfer. And I guess some are saying that they are transferring. Wouldn't surprise me if they do. I know those, Housley, I think, was a medical red shirt, and Stasic was an actual red shirt. And it's possible both of them are just worried about getting recruited over and not getting a chance with the Aggies, because we haven't talked about them a whole lot. And it might be better for them to move on as the Aggies are identifying other needs. And those two guys are kind of standing in the way. Because if those two don't transfer and nobody else transfers, the Aggies roster is full. They don't have room for a transfer big. They don't have room for any other needs if nobody else transfers. So if the Aggies are going to hit their targets, either somebody's got to become a really good back to the basket big really quick, or other players need to transfer.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see those players that they eventually do officially into the portal. Those two would not surprise me. In addition to Isaac Johnson, but similarly, I haven't seen anything official to suggest that. But not to say that it hasn't happened. Sometimes it's a little bit delayed when those reports actually do come out. But a lot of players throughout the Mountain West have put their names in the portal, and it hasn't even been open 2 days.
Yeah, it's pretty insane how many players have jumped in the portal, which we'll get to, because we're going to do Stat That Blew Our Minds and Player of the Week. And spoiler,
yours might have something to do with that.
Might have something to do with the number of players in the portal.
There you go. Speaking of portal players, or players in the portal, as we kind of alluded to earlier, a couple of Utah State women's basketball players. Now, the women's portal opens a day later, so today is the first day officially for women to enter the portal. And Ajay Salveson earlier today reporting two Aggie women's basketball players have put their names in.
Yeah, I believe there's 4 total. 2 of them entering today, or at least, well, maybe all of them entering, but a couple were announcing it before. Talia Logwood, Ivory Finley, Ava Smith, and Gracie Johnson are the players who have entered the portal so far. There could be others. But in a similar situation, if no more players enter the portal, then the Aggies roster on the women's side is full. But probably going to expect maybe 1 or 2 more transfers at least. And so you could see a bit of shakeup. I'm also not 100% sure on eligibility for some of the Aggie players. I'm not sure if Cheyenne Stubbs and some of these other players have another year of eligibility, because there's that whole JUCO ruling. And a lot of the Aggies players played JUCO. Jamison Heaton, granted, she had another year of eligibility regardless, but Cheyenne Stubbs, a couple years of JUCO. So it's I'm I'll need to double check on some of these players, but yeah, they're kind of in a similar situation to the men's team where if they're going to hit some of their roster goals as far as like the archetypes of players they're looking for, they're probably going to need more players to transfer.
Yeah, would really hope to see the Utah State women's basketball team get some footing.
Yeah, they need continuity more desperately than the men's team does.
Yeah, really start moving forward. They seemed to progress as the season went on. Didn't get as many wins, but they were showing signs of progress. Continuity is got to be key there for them to grow and improve as a team in this conference. Got to take another time out. Some more time for you to weigh in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321.
What is love? Love is what we live for. Love is timeless, never-ending. Love is when you say your name with hers and it has that special ring to it. At Jerrod's Fine Jewelry, we know what love is. Our fine collection of engagement rings feature a variety of diamonds and colorful styles.
And if you can't find your perfect ring,
Jerrod's Fine Jewelry will help custom design one that is the perfect fit. When it's love, it's Jerrod's Fine Jewelry.
Jerrod's Fine Jewelry. Make it special. Make it Jerrod's.
Locker 42 is a store for Utah State fans. Many of the items you'll find there are custom, one-of-a-kind, produced by Locker 42. Such production allows for the best possible prices and custom orders that are unheard of at this level, and is one of the highest contributing licensees for royalty sales. Your purchase at Locker 42 is supporting scholarships and student athletes. Hoodies, t-shirts, hats, jackets, everything Aggie is at Locker 42. Locker 42, a store for Aggie fans by Aggie fans.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagoner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Chevron Delo 15W40 oil, only $13.99 a gallon. Valvoline Premium Blue 5W40, only $24.99 a gallon. Or how about Royal Purple 15W40, only $29.99 a gallon. It's available now at your locally owned Cache Valley Napa Auto Parts stores, where they've got their case lot sale going on now. So we're talking about Utah State basketball. Jerrod Calhoun is sticking around, and fingers crossed that the core of this year's basketball team decides to do the same. Now, there's going to be 3 players who have exhausted all of their eligibility. That's Aubin Gadarazzi, Dexter Ocano, and Ian Martinez. There's no way for them to come back. But
I don't know. Never say never these days.
That's true. NCAA keeps finding new ways to be litigated against and allow players to stick around for longer. But it appears that's the case. Those 3 players will be gone. Isaac Johnson has put his name in the transfer portal. But who else stays? Can they keep a bunch of the core still intact? And with an exciting incoming freshman class, maybe just 1 or 2 players out of the portal is all Utah State needs to continue to compete at a very high level. So that's what we'll continue to monitor. But with Coach Calhoun in place, that's going to make it a lot easier for Utah State to retain its current roster, but also entice those few individual pieces to come in and supplement what's coming back next season.
Yeah, you can have a lot of players already sold on the vision of the team. And if you have enough NIL money, you can keep a lot of these guys around. There's not a lot of high-profile guys on the Aggies that teams may be wanting to poach. You're going to have some guys that are going to want to go somewhere to get more playing time. Isaac Johnson, likely that. You could see that out of one of Dayton Albury or Drake Allen. But if they're sold on like being part of a winning team, and even if you only play 20 to 25 minutes a game, you're still going to be a crucial player on an NCAA tournament team. That's something they can potentially buy into. Because other than that, like, you're not going to get these guys that are going to get poached away other than Mason Falslev, I think. Because aside from him, I think for the most part, they can keep these guys happy with NIL and keep them sold on what they're doing here at Utah State, guys that like being here. So I think there's a pretty good chance the Aggies maintain most of their rosters. I'm pretty sure there's going to be at least one or two surprise transfers from the Aggies. You just can't go an offseason without having at least one surprise transfer, one player that you thought was going to stay that ends up transferring. It's going to happen to the Aggies most likely, but generally speaking, I think they're going to survive the portal season fairly well, at least relative to their last 3 years.
A lot more to discuss and get into. Continue to get your questions, your comments, and your reactions on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We'll get into the Utah Jazz. They're in action tonight. Only about 10 games left on their season as they race to the bottom. Can they get there? More from Dan Patrick first.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. The transfer portal is becoming a lightning rod in college sports. Fans hate seeing their favorite players leave, and the old school purists argue it's killing the loyalty in the game. But let's be real. If we're going to criticize athletes for transferring, then we need to have that same energy for the coaches, who have no problem jumping ship at the first sign of a better deal. Just look at the past week. McNeese State head coach Will Wade openly admitted he was weighing his options while his team was still playing in the tournament. Xavier's Sean Miller, he's headed to Texas mere days after his team was eliminated. And Michigan's Dusty May, he's turned 2 consecutive tournament runs and a Final Four at Florida Atlantic into a high-profile job in Ann Arbor. Coaches leave all the time for better pay, bigger programs, greater exposure. Fans might not love it, but they accept it as part of the game. So why shouldn't the players have the same right to advance their careers? The transfer portal isn't ruining college sports. It's just leveling the playing field for the athletes. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. How is your car looking?